All right. Shalom Israel, shalom, shalom. This is Brother Wariala. This is my channel, Rise of Israel. First and foremost, I like to give all honor and glory unto the Most High God, Yahweh. And I do so in the name of His only begotten Son, Yahweh Shai, Yahweh being the name of the Heavenly Father, who the world will call God. And His only begotten Son would be Yahweh Shai, who the world will call Jesus, Yeshua, but his real name is Yahweh Shai in the Paleo Hebrew. So first off, we're going to go into, as you can see by the title of the video, we're going to go into, I don't know what the title is going to be, but it's speaking on Jews in West Africa, being found in West Africa, Israelite communities being found in West Africa. This will be part one of a multi-part series. But without further ado, let's get into it. So as you can see by the screen here, this is a source from the Library of Yale. And this is a map we will be looking into. It's called Africa, performed by the Senior Danville, under the patronage of the Duke of Orleans. Revised and improved by Mr. Bolton. All right, so this is a relatively good map, right, of West Africa, as we can see. We're not going to focus on too much on the region of Guinea or the Gold Coast, but we will in future videos, right? So right now we're going to look more so into northwestern Africa, right? Specifically in the land of Lamb-Lime, right? So Lamb-Lime is really what we understand today as a region that Islamic scholars during the medieval period would look at or would associate with this region of West Africa, right? Timbuktu being part of it, Ghana, these areas that we see today, right? So as we look, we can read specifically this right here. Matter of fact, we'll start with this one, Lamb-Lime, right? It says, according to Idrisi, the land hereabout was peopled by Jews, right? So the land of Lamb-Lime, according to Idrisi, which we'll go into, this is speaking about a Islamic geographer by the name of Muhammad al-Idrisi that traveled to these regions and spoke to people and noticed that this area was peopled by Jews. So this will be interesting because the video is pretty much based off of what we're seeing here. But as we read this little section right here, it states, all Nagricia from the head of Senegal is very little known, but the situation of this great region is described by Ptolemy, joined with the knowledge of Idrisi, the Nubian geographer, and Leo, the African, agrees with several new discoveries, all uniting to verify their accounts. I therefore conclude that the Niger flows from west to east and has no affinity with the Senegal or any part thereof, but falls into the same lakes that communicate with the river Nile. So we see areas that this area, the area of Nagricia, the area of Lamb-Lime, however you want to pronounce it, is said to have been peopled by Jews, right? So as we go in to this next part, we go into this book titled African Dominion, a new history of empire in early and medieval West Africa, right, by Michael A. Gomez. So we're going to jump to a specific part in this read. I'm thinking we might start at page 45. We're going to go to page 45 just to gain an understanding of Lamb-Lime and where this region is, and we'll probably end up coming back to the same page. Right, so what is this region of Lamb-Lime? Right, so we'll start off by reading it. It says, the prey of the Lamb-Lime. Reference to the Lamb-Lime brings into focus populations targeted for enslavement, right? So just remember, this area was big on slavery, right? with the sources employing such terms as the Mariun, the Mariun, the Zagawayun, and the Mariun confined to the Lake Chad, and the Barbara and Amima located within the Western Sahel. Okay, so let's consider what we're reading right here, right? Speaking of regions that we see heavy enslavement in, and just understanding that it's in the confine or nigh unto Lake Chad area. But then it mentions people that were considered the Barbara and Amima. Remember the word Amima, right? That's located within the Western Sahel, right? So where is the Western Sahel located? Grab this real quick. If you're not aware of the Western Sahel, let's explain where this is at least located. So I looked up briefly, is the Western Sahel near Mali, right? So it says, yes, Western Sahel is not just near Mali. It is a central country within the Sahel region itself. Okay. So the Sahel is a semi-arid belt stretching across Africa just south of the Sahara Desert. And Mali sits directly in the center zone of it. So Mali is in the Sahara, is in the Sahel, right? It sits directly in the center of the zone, transitioning from the desert to the north, in the north to the savanna in the south. Let's keep going. It also states that not only is Mali located there, but specifically, more specifically, Timbuktu. Yes, Timbuktu is located directly in the northern edge of the Sahel, serving as historic crossroads where the Sahara Desert meets the semi-arid transition zone. Situated in modern-day Mali and West Africa, Timbuktu lies near the Niger River, positioned at the edge of the Sahelian belt that spans the continent, right? So, as we can see, the Western Sahel is, or what we can see that's in the Western Sahel is Mali, more specifically Timbuktu. Remember that. The region of Timbuktu is in the Sahel. So in the context of the Lamland itself, an invented term seems to have represented a range of non-Muslim groups with whom writers were unfamiliar, but who, according to Al-Idrisi, specifically occupied the space to the south of Ghana. So we understand, we already know who Al-Idrisi is. Speaking of this Lamb, this place, this traveler was able to notice that where this place was and who inhabited it. And it was mainly inhabited by non-Islamic groups. And it'll continue to explain more on this matter. So we're going to go to, we're actually going to jump up to page 60. No, we're going to go jump to page a little higher, actually. We're going to go to page 390. Bear with me. Slovakia. That's 337. Who's 388. 394. Perfect. This is where we'll start at. Now when you move towards the middle of this, it speaks more about Al-Idrisi. And we'll be right here. Again, page 394. And these are just the notes that are on that follow that are about chapter 5. So again, we see Al-Idrisi locates Daw and Malal in the land of Lamlan within 4 days separating them. So we haven't spoken much about Malal, right? But again, remember that word, Malal. Consider the word Malal, because this is a big part that we see in the land of Lamlan, right? Again, Jews are supposed to be inhabiting this region. Okay. So let's continue. 4 days separating. While al-Bakri characterizes Daw as a great kingdom, Al-Idrisi describes Daw and Malal as two small villages, village-like towns. Al-Yaqubi also mentioned a kingdom of Malal, which is in Lamlan. But in the Lake of Chad area, Al-Idrisi goes on to say, their inhabitants, according to the reports of the people of the Salakia, it says, their inhabitants, that meaning the inhabitants of Malal, according to the reports of the people of that part of the world, are Jews. So more specifically, we see that there's a land that at this period, at this time period, Al-Idrisi, speaking of the 11th century AD, he's expressing that there are people reporting that the people that live in this part of the world, aka Malal, are Jews. That's something to really consider, because when we looked at the people of Amima, it said that they lived in this area. And this area is, which is known as Malal, is the same place where Jews are being brought to. And I'm not going to give it away, but, just also remember the word Malal as well, because that's also another part of this. But we're going to continue. But just remember that people who inhabit the land of Malal are inhabited by Jews. People are considered Jews, right? But it goes on to say, but infidelity and ignorance overcame them. Like, when hasn't that overcame the Jews, right? As we continue, it says, Al-Ziri also claims the Amima profess Judaism. So we see that there are the Amima, once again, that live in this region are considered Jews. So let's just bring this all in together. At the beginning, we brought up the map of Africa that was created in roughly around 1774. It was published, but it was created a lot earlier than that. We see that in the land of Lamlam, that there are Jews, according to Al-Idrisi. As we continue, we see that more specifically, that in this land of Lamlam, we have the Amima people, who were a people group that lived in this region, and this region was big on slavery, right? As we continue, we see that the Amima people profess Judaism, right? And that the region, which is considered a region where, in the land of Malal, in the land of Lamlam, which is called Malal, was peopled by Jews. So the people of Amima are the same people that lived in the place of Malal, which is in the land of Lamlam, which is also the land that it was said to have been peopled by Jews. So this is going to get interesting when we start to look at who are the people that are getting who are to get enslaved in this region, right? Because we already know that slavery is in this region. We know that the Amima are in this region. We know that there would be Jews in this region, and that the Amima lived in this region and called themselves Jews, right? So we're not gonna beat a dead horse. We do want to put a pin in that, though. We want this to be a clear understanding part, right? And a reminder, the Amima live in the place that is in the Western Sahel, which is called Mali, right? Mali, Malal. We'll get into that. Actually, we'll go to that next. Let's jump to page 66. Salakia. Nope, it's 92. Okay, 66. More on this is chapter 5. We're gonna continue on this. Let's see, where are we gonna start? All right, we'll start right here. It says Al-Bakri possibly refers to Barisiu of Mali in the 5th and 11th century when he writes of another great kingdom, the king of which has the title of Dal. The inhabitants of this region use arrows when fighting. Beyond this country lies another called Malao, the king of which is also as al-Musalmani, al-Musul, al-Musul, Musulmani. Okay, he positions Dal or Do east of the Nile. Salaki, give me 1 second. East of the Nile, the Senegal River with the Falamine and Bafing tributaries, together with Malao, well within the lands associated with ancient Mali. So what did we learn here? That Malao is very easily associated with the land of Mali. So this is how they understand the land to be, or the land to be associated with, and that is in association with the land of Mali, right? It says, according to al-Bakri, Malal had suffered a withering drought for years, toward the end of which a guest of Malal's king, who used to read the Quran and was acquainted with the Sunnah, enjoined the ruler to convert to Islam, committing to pray for your deliverance from your plight. Thus he continued to press the king until the latter accepted Islam and became a sincere Muslim. After the guest's partial night of intercessory prayer rains descended, al-Bakri, when combined with al-Shamaki's 16th century version of the same, represents a perspicacious distillation of the relationship between religion and polity at the dawn of medieval Muslim West Africa, particularly the relationships origins in what becomes Mali, right? So we see that Malal, as he's expressing, is deeply associated with the origins of Mali. Now, when you look at other sources, like this source by Sirio Canos Dene, which is titled The Empire of Mali, which speaks of the origin of Mali coming from Malao, the term Malao, right? Now, if you don't know anything about this source, this is a very well-known and respected, extremely valuable academic source that speaks on Mali and West African empires. So just a brief understanding of this peer-reviewed article. It speaks on pretty much, obviously we see that this is an Oxford Research Encyclopedia of African History, which it was published by Oxford, but also this article specifically was peer-reviewed and authored by experts in this field, right? We see that other encyclopedias don't usually have that type of scholarly reference like this does, right? And specifically speaking on Sirio Canos Dene, we see that this fella is a very well-known and respected scholar who specializes in African history and the history of the Mali Empire specifically. The quality of this content is also very well done and very well respected among peers and other scholars. So we're gonna jump to page 7. It doesn't have a page 7, Salakia. I'm gonna kind of hold up 1 second. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So right around here. 1 second. All right, here we go. Right, the quest for Mali's capital. Again, this is a very respected, peer-reviewed reference. Let's see. Okay, there we go. It says the quest for Mali's capital. Of all the issues concerning the Empire of Mali, the location and nature of its capital has been by far the most debated. Arabic sources commonly describe the capital, Ibn Battuta, even visited it in person, but they do not provide any definitive clues regarding its name or location. The capital is referred to as Byty by Al Dukhali, as Binai by Ibn Khaldun, as Mali by Ibn Battuta, and as Malal by Ibn Said and Al Adrisi. So we see that there are people that consider this same place as the same place as Malal. So the kingdom of Mali, and many people, if you really look into it, many people associate the origin of Mali coming from the term Malal, right? Which we see was peopled by Jews. Other names presented in his literature are Songo, suggested in 1492 by the Portuguese de Barrios, while the 17th century Tariq el-Fatish claims the two successive capitals of the empire were Diarbra, sometimes interpreted as Kangamba, and Yan, also read as Niani, Niang, and Diang, depending on translations. So we see that Malal is known to have been one of the earliest capitals of Mali, right? This is very important to consider because of what we're reading. Let's jump to the Mali Empire, history, culture, and legacy of the giant of West Africa, right? Obviously, we see this image or this map of Mali, and we're going to stop right after it, and we're going to read right here, where it says, known as Manden by Manding populations, the Mali Empire may have been called so by foreign people such as the Puelus. Arab writers also referred to it by various names such as Melal, Malal, Melal, Melit, or Malay. The name Mali appears for the first time in the form of Melal in the 9th century. So we see that there are instances where there are people as early as the 9th century calling the land of Mali Melal, right? In the 11th century, al-Bakri mentions the city of Melal and Dal near gold mines located in the region that would become the heart of the Mali Empire. So Melal was a common name for Mali in the early 9th to 11th century. In the following century, Al-Idrisi describes Melal as a vassal of the Ghanaian Empire involved in the slave trade with the Maghreb, and mentions the neighboring great kingdom of Dal, which some researchers associate with the Susu Empire. Okay, so we see that the origins of Mali are deeply associated with the kingdom of Malal. And one person might be asking, okay, why is that important? Because what we read in page 394 that states that Malal was peopled by Jews. So what must that mean? That the foundation of the Mali Empire was peopled by Israelites. So let me jump to 94 again, just to put the nail in the coffin one more time. Al-Idrisi locates Dal and Malal in the land of Lamline, with 4 days separating them. While al-Bakri characterizes Dal as a great kingdom, Al-Idrisi describes Dal and Malal as two small village-like towns. Al-Yaqubi also mentions a kingdom of Malal, but in the Lake of Chad area. Al-Idrisi goes on to say their inhabitants, according to the reports of the people of that part of the world, are Jews. So it's saying that these people that lived in the land of Malal, which many people associate with Mali, are inhabited by Jews. But infidelity and ignorance overcame them. Al-Zuri also claimed that Amima professed profess Judaism. So Amima, which is another people that lived in the same region, as we read in on page 45, where it said that this land was located within the Western Sahel, which is the land of which is Mali, which is where Mali also is located. Shows you that the people of this land, more likely than not, would have had to been Jews, because that's what it's saying, right? As we continue, we're going to, and I don't want to make this video too long, Salakia. We're going to page 44, all right? Now, follow me with this part. Okay, so on page 44, we see Salakia, domestic slavery. Bear with me. Okay, here we go. We'll start up here. It says, it therefore cannot be assumed that all Sahelian states were similarly engaged in trafficking. Consideration of Ghana also makes this point. The earlier sources associate Ghana with gold production and little else. Domestic slavery certainly existed in Ghana, but al-Bakri's few references to it are in stark contrast with his delight in describing enslaved females in Aguadas. There are apparently thousands, but they were not necessarily supplied by Ghana, as Aguadas' own king regularly raided the land of Sudan. It is only with al-Ziri's 6th to 12th century discussion of Ghana late in the 5th, 11th century that its involvement in enslaving becomes unequivocal. As they raided the land of Barbara, Salakia, as they raided the land of Barbara and Amima and captured their people as they do when they were pagans. So we see that the people of Ghana raided and enslaved the people in the land of Amima. And they captured their people as they do with other pagans. So they enslaved them. This speaks on domestic slavery that existed in Ghana, as this paragraph expresses, right? So let's keep going. Stay in chapter 44. It says, it is not clear who the Amima and Barbary were, possibly Bambara, also ambiguous, though the latter were regarded as strong, impetuous, brave, and skilled in war, the most noble and aristocratic of men, to whom the Emir of Ghana were related. Said to inhabit the middle of the desert, they may have been a branch of the Sonink. The Amima, on the other hand, are identified as impoverished Jews who read the Torah and were involved in import and business. So we see that the Amima, once again, were the people that lived in this region were identified as Jews. And they were the ones that were being held as captives and enslaved. Let's really consider this, right? So we have a people called Amima that are from the land of Mali and lived in the land of Mali or Timbuktu. And they were taken over and they were enslaved by the people of Ghana. This same people were people who studied the Torah regularly and were identified as impoverished Jews. Let's keep reading, then we'll jump to something else that I think that we would find very interesting. Al-Ziri's treatment of Ghana is confirmed by his contemporary al-Idrisi, though the latter's emphasis shifts in saying the people of Barisa, Sila, and Ghana make forays into the land of Lamline and capture its inhabitants. The most distinctive quality of the Lamline was their plight as prey. Every year, great numbers of them sent to Al-Maghrib's Al-Aqsa. Everyone in the land of Lamline is branded on his face with fire, which is their mark, as we have mentioned before, right? And we're going to stop right there. We're going to go to another point that I think is going to come off very, very interesting. and we're going to shut it down after that. Right? So let's look at this real quick. The Ghanaian officials and traditional leaders have expressed regret and apologies for their role in the transatlantic slave trade. Just think about this. In 2006, Ghana apologized to the African Americans, and subsequently, Ghanaian leaders have emphasized the need for reconciliation and reparations for the damages caused by the slave trade. This is extremely interesting because we see that the people of Ghana, all the way back in during the medieval period, played a big role in enslaving African Americans, right? So who we will call today as African Americans. Let's read this. Let's watch this video real quick.
We are very privileged.
All right, y'all listen commentary about what they're saying and how we can move forward as a people. All right, y'all listen to our elder real quick.
We are very privileged to be with you, particularly our brothers and sisters from the Caribbeans and the diaspora. And the people from all over Africa, our brothers and sisters from all over Africa. I wish at this point to particularly to apologize deeply on behalf of the chiefs and people of Gold Coast and Ghana for the atrocities, the cruelty, the inhuman treatment that were committed 400 years ago by my ancestors during the Atlantic slave trade.
So this is a video speaking of his apologies to the African American population and those that were dispersed throughout the world for his ancestors playing part in the enslavement of the African Americans and those who suffered from the transatlantic slave trade. Again, this is for real quick. Give me 1 second, Salakia. For anybody that wants to associate this with plagiarism at all, this is my thoughts and comments on this content. I am not reposting this. I am simply using this as a commentary. So fair use.
Where over 400 years ago,
listen closely,
millions of our brothers and sisters were captured, sold, and transported under inhumane and cruel circumstances through Elmina Castle across to the Caribbeans and to the New World.
Listen closely.
On behalf of the chiefs and people of Ghana, I do render unqualified apology, deep from the bottom of our hearts. Deep from our bottom of our hearts. But one thing that I want you to be aware of, it was not without resistance. Some of our chiefs did fought and resisted. Some of our people did fought and resisted. But we are fighting a losing battle against a stronger army. People with guns, and we had no guns. They deceived us with liquor.
Did you hear what he just said?
We had no guns. They deceived us with liquor and all other temptations.
Let's pull out this scripture real quick. He said that they deceived us with liquor and other temptations, right? Let's grab this real quick in the book of Joel, chapter 3. Right? So, Joel chapter 3 and verse 1, it says, "And behold, in those days and at that time, when I shall bring again the captivity of Judah and Jerusalem, I will also gather all nations and will bring them down into the valley of Jehoshaphat, and will plead with them there for my people and for my heritage Israel, whom they have scattered among the nations and part of my land. So the people that scattered the Israelites among the nations, aka this man's heritage and the people of Ghana, he is going to the Lord is going to bring those people and plead with them there for the people of Israel, right? Let's keep going. It says this, and they have casted lots for my people, and have given a boy for an harlot, and sold a girl for wine that they might drink. He said, this man openly just said that his forefathers openly were deceived by the devil for alcohol. Look, it says they traded boys and obtained prostitutes and sold girls for enough wine to get drunk, for alcohol, for liquor.
Whatever the circumstances that led us to us, we stand here to render apology. And it's
So that's it, man. And not that every person from Ghana is a Canaanite or is of another nation, but it is still important, and that's why we're going to continue to read this. Real quick, it says, verse 4, yea, and what have ye to do with me, O Tyre and Zidon, and all the coasts of Palestine? Will you render me a recompense? And if ye recompense me swiftly and speedily will I return your recompense upon your own head. Because ye have taken my silver and my gold, and have carried into your temples my goodly pleasant things. The children of Judah also and the children of Jerusalem have ye sold unto the Grecians, that ye might remove them far from their border. So who removed the Israelites far from their borders? For wine, for alcohol, and sold their people as sex slaves? This man just said it. This man has openly expressed it, right? And for those that might not agree that this land was that they were also Canaanites that moved along the western shores of Africa. Let's read this real quick. Now, bear with me, Salakia. This is another book titled The Cambridge History of Judaism, right? And we're going to jump to it real quick. It's another book that speaks on Jews being in Africa, but the point of it is to show that there were Canaanites there also. It says, in description, there are frequently mentions of Jews in Africa. He notes that once Jewish law was widely observed, that there were warrior tribes in the Atlas claiming descent from King David. The Canaanites traveled to Africa, followed later by the Sabians, and that the ruler of Timbuktu could not stand the sight of the Jews, right? So we see that there were Canaanites also in that land. We see that being expressed already. So however they were able to take over and usurp authority in the land is a mystery in itself. But we see that there were Jews in West Africa, specifically those that initially ruled Mali. But then we see that there were also Canaanites there, and the Canaanites will be the ones to sell the Israelites into captivity, so that Israel be moved far from their border. But with that, I'd like to give honor and glory to the Most High God Yahweh. I do send the name of His only begotten Son Yahweh Shai, little ones out of video through the Spirit. And I thank you for watching. Kwame Yashar Allah Shalom.